As the wheels of Emily's chair rolled quietly over the gravel path, she thought it would be another peaceful morning walk in the park with Raider by her side. But when two familiar figures emerged from the shadows, their smiles sharp and cold, her chest tightened. "We've come for the dog," one of them said, their tone calm but threatening. Raider, her loyal shepherd, stood between her and the strangers, growling low. Emily's heart raced. They didn't know yet what she would do to keep him. What no one could have predicted. Emily Harper's life had become a carefully crafted routine. After the car accident 5 years ago that left her in a wheelchair, every day felt like a battle to maintain independence. Her mornings started early, with sunlight streaming through the windows of her small house on the edge of Portland. Beside her, always ready to assist, was Raider, her German shepherd. He wasn't just a pet, he was her lifeline. Raider had been trained as a service dog, but to Emily, he was far more. He was her constant companion, her protector, and the only one who truly understood how much she had lost. Their favorite part of the day was their morning walk in the nearby park. Emily would roll her wheelchair along the winding paths, and Raider would trot beside her, his leash attached but loose, his eyes constantly watching her. The park offered a sense of freedom she rarely felt elsewhere. The towering trees, the gentle rustling of leaves, and the occasional chirping of birds created a peaceful haven that seemed to belong to just the two of them. On this particular morning, the air was crisp, and the grass glistened with dew. Raider darted ahead, his tail wagging as he chased a squirrel for a few moments before stopping to look back at Emily. She laughed softly. "Always keeping me on my toes, aren't you, boy?" she said. Raider trotted back to her, his tongue lolling out in a happy grin. Emily stopped her wheelchair near a quiet bench, watching as Raider explored nearby. It was in that moment, as she sat in the stillness of the morning, that she heard voices behind her. At first, she didn't pay much attention, people walked their dogs here all the time. But as the voices grew closer, something about them tugged at her memory. They were sharp, familiar, and unwelcome. When she turned, her heart sank. James and Karen, her former neighbors, were walking toward her. She hadn't seen them in years, not since the accident, and the sight of them sent a cold chill through her. She tightened her grip on Raider's leash instinctively as the couple approached, their smiles far too calculated to be friendly. "Emily," James said, his tone falsely casual. "Long time, no see." Emily's hands gripped the armrests of her wheelchair as James and Karen came closer. Raider, sensing her tension, moved to stand protectively beside her. His ears perked up, and his gaze stayed fixed on the approaching couple. "What are you doing here?" Emily asked, her voice steady but guarded. She hadn't spoken to them since the months after her accident, and seeing them now felt like a ghost from a life she'd left behind. James smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, we're just out for a walk. Nice park you've got here. We didn't expect to see you." He paused, his gaze dropping to Raider. "And especially not him." Emily's stomach turned. "What are you talking about?" Karen stepped forward, crossing her arms. "You know exactly what we're talking about. That's our dog. Raider. Or should I say Max? You took him from us after your accident." Emily's breath caught in her throat. "That's not true," she said sharply. "I adopted Raider from a shelter 2 years ago. He's mine." Karen tilted her head, feigning sympathy. "Come on, Emily. You know he was ours. He ran away, and somehow you ended up with him. Look, we're not here to fight, we just want what's rightfully ours." Emily shook her head, her voice rising. "He wasn't yours. The shelter told me he had no owners. I have all the paperwork to prove it." James stepped closer, his smile now gone. "Paperwork or not, we have photos of him from before. We raised him. You can't keep him." Raider let out a low growl, standing firmly in front of Emily. She placed a hand on his back, trying to stay calm. "You're wrong," she said firmly. "Raider is my service dog. He's my family. You're not taking him." Karen sighed, shaking her head. "We're not here to argue, Emily. But if you won't hand him over willingly, we'll have to take this to court. Emily felt her chest tighten, a mix of anger and fear swelling inside her. Do what you want, she snapped. But you're not taking him from me. James smirked, as if her defiance was exactly what he expected. We'll see about that, he said before turning away. Karen followed, glancing back at Rader with a look that made Emily's skin crawl. As they walked away, Emily sat frozen, her heart pounding. Rader leaned against her leg, his warm, steady presence grounding her. She stroked his fur absent-mindedly, her mind racing. She couldn't let them take him. He wasn't just her dog, he was her lifeline, her reason to keep going. Whatever it took, she would fight for him. Emily sat at her kitchen table that evening, a stack of papers spread out before her. Rader lay at her feet, his head resting on her lap, as if sensing her unease. Her adoption papers, veterinary records, and certification proving Rader was her service dog were all there, but the threat from James and Karen lingered in her mind. Could they really take him away? She picked up her phone and dialed Liam, her old friend and lawyer. The line rang twice before he picked up. Emily? It's been a while. What's going on? Her voice wavered slightly as she explained the situation. They're claiming Rader was their dog before I adopted him. They said they're going to take me to court. Liam listened patiently before speaking. Do you have proof of adoption? Records from the shelter? Yes, Emily said firmly. Everything's in order. They have no legal claim, but I know how manipulative they can be. They're determined, Liam. And I don't know if I can handle this. You don't have to do this alone, Liam reassured her. Send me all your documents, and I'll look into their claims. But Emily, they can't just show up and take your dog. You have rights, and Rader is legally yours. His words gave her a small measure of comfort, but the fear lingered. After hanging up, Emily spent the rest of the night gathering every bit of evidence she had. The adoption paperwork, notes from the shelter volunteer who had worked with Rader, and even photos of her and Rader from the past 2 years, all of it went into a folder. The next morning, Emily received an official letter from James and Karen's lawyer. It was a demand for Rader, stating that they would proceed with legal action if she didn't comply. Her hands shook as she read the letter, but she reminded herself of Liam's words. She wasn't going to back down. As the week went on, Liam began building her case. He found inconsistencies in James and Karen's claims, and the shelter confirmed that Rader had been abandoned with no registered owner before Emily adopted him. Still, the anxiety weighed on her. Every time she thought about losing Rader, it felt like the ground beneath her was crumbling. One evening, while sitting on the floor next to Rader's bed, Emily rested her head against him. We're going to get through this, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Rader licked her hand, his steady presence reminding her why she had to keep fighting. He wasn't just a dog, he was her partner, her anchor, and the reason she hadn't given up. Whatever James and Karen tried, Emily knew one thing: she wouldn't lose him without a fight. The courtroom was quiet, the kind of silence that pressed against Emily's ears and made her pulse feel louder than it should. She sat at the defendant's table, her wheelchair adjusted to face the judge, with Liam seated beside her. Rader, her ever-loyal companion, wasn't allowed inside but waited with a friend in the hallway. Emily felt the absence of his calming presence like a weight in her chest, but she steadied herself. This was the fight she had to win for both of them. Across the room, James and Karen sat confidently, their lawyer standing to present their case. He showed old photos of a German Shepherd, one that looked similar to Rader. This dog, named Max, belonged to my clients, the lawyer said, his voice smooth and rehearsed. He ran away several years ago. It is clear that the dog Miss Harper now claims as hers is the same dog. Emily's stomach churned. She glanced at Liam, who gave her a reassuring nod before standing to speak. Your Honor, Liam began, his voice steady and firm, the burden of proof lies with the plaintiffs. They must prove beyond a doubt that this dog is the same one they claim to have owned. But the evidence we have provided shows otherwise. He gestured toward a folder of documents on the judge's bench. Ms. Harper adopted Rader from a local shelter 2 years ago. The shelter verified at the time of adoption that the dog had no registered owner and had been abandoned. We have signed statements from the shelter staff confirming this. The judge flipped through the documents, nodding slowly. James and Karen shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but their lawyer pressed on. My clients recognized this dog from their time living near Ms. Harper. They believe she took him in without notifying them. Liam shook his head. Your Honor, we've presented veterinary records and training certifications issued long after Ms. Harper adopted Raider. If the plaintiffs had a claim to this dog, why wait years to act? The courtroom was silent as the judge turned to James and Karen. Why didn't you take steps to retrieve this dog when you allegedly saw it in her possession years ago? Karen faltered, her voice wavering. We didn't realize it was him at first. And then we moved away. It was a weak excuse, and Emily could see the judge wasn't convinced. But the turning point came when Liam called a witness, a volunteer from the shelter where Emily had adopted Raider. The young woman stepped forward, holding a detailed report from the day Raider was taken in. This dog was brought to us after being found wandering the streets, she explained. We scanned him for a microchip, there was none. He was underweight and had no tags or collar. There was no way to identify an owner. Ms. Harper adopted him legally after completing all the required steps. James and Karen's lawyer tried to argue, but it was clear their case was crumbling. The judge asked a few more questions before leaning back in his chair, thoughtful. Finally, he spoke. Based on the evidence presented, it is clear that Ms. Harper legally adopted Raider, and the plaintiffs have failed to provide sufficient proof that the dog belonged to them. This court rules in favor of the defendant. Case dismissed. Emily felt the weight lift off her shoulders. Her hands trembled as she turned to Liam, who gave her a proud smile. Relief flooded through her as she realized it was over. Raider was hers, legally and without question. As she left the courtroom, she found Raider waiting for her in the hallway. The moment he saw her, his tail wagged furiously, and he nuzzled her hand. We did it, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Raider's warm presence was all the reassurance she needed. They were going home together. The sun was setting by the time Emily rolled out of the courthouse with Raider by her side. The evening air was crisp and carried a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. As they reached the sidewalk, Liam walked beside her, holding a folder with the final paperwork from the case. You did it, Emily, he said, smiling down at her. You stood your ground and won. Raider is yours officially, legally, and without any question. Emily let out a shaky breath, her hand resting on Raider's head. I don't think I could have done it without you, Liam. Thank you. He shrugged, grinning. You didn't need me as much as you think. You've got more strength than most people I know. Raider, as if sensing the weight lifted from Emily, wagged his tail and nuzzled her hand. She smiled down at him, her voice soft. We're going home, boy. No one's ever going to take you from me. When they arrived back at her small house, Emily opened the door and let Raider trot inside. He moved straight to his usual spot on the rug, curling up but keeping his eyes on her as if making sure she was okay. Emily wheeled herself to the kitchen, taking a moment to let everything sink in. For weeks, she had lived in fear of losing him, but now, that fear was gone. Later that evening, as Emily sat on the floor beside Raider, she felt the tears finally come. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief. She ran her fingers through his fur, her voice trembling as she spoke. You've been with me through everything, haven't you? I don't know what I'd do without you. Raider lifted his head and licked her cheek, his eyes steady and warm. In that moment, she realized that Raider wasn't just a service dog or a companion. He was her family, her reason to keep pushing forward even when life felt impossible. The next morning, Emily woke to find her inbox flooded with messages. News of the court case had spread, and her story was being shared online. Strangers from all over the country wrote to her, offering words of support and sharing their own stories of how animals had changed their lives. Some even donated money to help her with Raider's care and her own medical expenses. Emily was overwhelmed by the kindness pouring in. For so long, she had felt alone in her struggles, but now she realized just how many people were rooting for her and Raider. She made a quiet promise to herself to pay that kindness forward whenever she could. Days turned into weeks, and life slowly returned to normal. Raider continued to be her constant companion, his presence a reminder of the bond they had fought so hard to protect. Every morning, they returned to the park for their walks, enjoying the quiet peace they had reclaimed. One evening, as Emily sat on her porch watching the stars, Raider lay at her feet. She reached down and stroked his fur, her voice quiet but steady. "You're more than just a dog, Raider. You're my hero. And no one will ever take you away from me again." Raider thumped his tail against the wooden porch, his contentment clear. Together, they had faced a challenge that had once seemed impossible, and now they had something stronger than ever: hope, trust, and a bond no one could break. This story is a powerful reminder of the strength of the bond between a human and their animal companion. Emily's journey wasn't just about fighting for Raider, it was about reclaiming her sense of agency and showing the world that true strength doesn't come from physical ability, but from resilience, love, and determination. Raider wasn't just a service dog, he was a symbol of hope, trust, and second chances. For Emily, he was more than a lifeline, he was family. The fact that she fought so fiercely to protect him, even in the face of manipulation and threats, speaks to the lengths we're willing to go for those we love. The story's ending isn't just satisfying because Emily won the court case, it's uplifting because it highlights the best of humanity. The support she received from strangers after her story became public shows that compassion and kindness still exist, and that standing up for what's right can inspire others to do the same. Ultimately, this is a story of survival, loyalty, and how two broken souls, Emily and Raider, found strength and healing in each other. It leaves us with a simple but powerful message: love, in any form, is worth fighting for.